What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Event Marketing Redefined. I am your host, Matt Kleinrock, CEO of Rockway Exhibits and Events. And today, Becca Mazur on our show, and we're going to talk about integrating event software. I think event software, event tech, obviously a popular topic with in-person events kind of really taking full steam ahead in the last 2 years. I mean, event tech was kind of like pushed into acceleration during COVID, but then there's also a lot of really great event tech in the same space as hybrid and virtual as there is in person. So just a good topic. We are going to talk a little bit about how to integrate it into your events, how to integrate it with your CRM, how they kind of play back and forth, and all of the cool stuff that goes on there. Becca, thanks for being here.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Cool. So we were just talking offline. You have a cool background, just so people know. I won't talk you up too much, but I'll kind of get us going here, which is you have agency experience, like conventional marketing agency experience, 9 years, which is great, I think, rolling into events. You were the head of global event technology at Cognizant for 7 years, which is a whole nother experience in there. You're currently now with Cvent, and you are in a senior principal consultant role, which essentially you can describe to us from what I understand of it is essentially you're helping people use it, helping them solve problems, and helping them sort of maximize their events with their software.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. That's a good way to put it.
Then I'm on the right path. I nailed it.
You are on the right path.
All right. So first of all, for those, most here who are listening are going to be familiar with event software, but let's kind of discuss the importance of it, right? What's the importance of event software, connecting to a CRM, utilizing it at your events, right? I mean, what's kind of the value of it?
Oh my gosh. So much value in not only event software, but in connecting your event software to CRMs, as you said. I also want to point out it's not just CRMs, also marketing automation platforms, customer data platforms, whatever your company is using, usually it's a combination as well. So integrating event software with CRMs has become extremely valuable for organizations in recent years. Like you said, events have become, especially since the pandemic, a more strategic marketing channel. With digitization of events from the pandemic, that just really, really, like you said, accelerated things. And now in-person, virtual, hybrid, it's all digitized. There's so much engagement that we can capture now, so much data that, this is really at the forefront and has made events, like I said, it's an event channel now. It's no longer an event program. Yeah. So most leading event software companies do offer turnkey out-of-the-box integrations, as well as custom solutions from an execution standpoint. But in terms of the outcomes, which is the most important part, in short, integrations allow marketing teams to streamline workflows, maximize the value of their event data, and most importantly, more confidently prove event ROI, which I'm sure is a buzzword that you've heard a lot lately. So integrating event tech with MarTech can automate, tedious manual processes, which is kind of the low-hanging fruit, but it also provides an accurate 360-degree view of event engagement at every key touch point. So for registration, session attendance, post-event follow-up, it's now giving event marketers the insights into each attendee's preferences, interests, behaviors. So having this level of data, and not only just having it, but having it in real time enables marketers to promptly and send highly targeted follow-ups, and for sales teams to have more meaningful ongoing conversations with potential clients. And, as we also see event budgets tightening across the board, integrations enable marketing teams to prove the event's revenue impact and ROI by connecting the dots to pipeline acceleration, which can only be done when you're integrating your systems into the CRM.
That was such a good, energetic rundown of so many. I was writing notes on the side of my pad here. You just said some great stuff there, definitely things like the idea that events are becoming more strategic, right? Okay. And the idea that events are really more of a channel, like bigger companies are viewing them as a channel. They are viewing them as a go-to-market. They're viewing them as a way to get to the customer, either current customer, new customer, partner channels, and to basically produce some form of outcome. So that's such a large piece there. And then when you're talking about how to utilize a software to help you do all of that, it's essentially making your life easier, whether you're doing it for trade shows, events, it doesn't matter. So those were some really good pieces. The other thing it makes me think that you said on the opposite side is the customer experience, right? For the attendee, for the person that's there, and that these softwares are helping make that whole experience easier for them. So the next two things I want to touch on is one, I want to talk about data, right?
Mhm.
Because I think that's obviously a huge benefit
Oh
coming
yeah.
from having a software. And then the other piece is the attendee, right? The person that's utilizing it
Mhm.
essentially experience. So whichever one you want to go with first, but those are the next two things I want to talk about.
Okay. So data, I mean, that's a broad topic. So where do you want to
Mhm.
start in terms of data?
I would say the
Hmm.
advantages, right? Like if you're running an event and you're utilizing a software, obviously you're collecting data,
Hmm.
and data is king, and you can go from event to event to event or year over year over. So how does that data help?
Yeah. All right. So, you know what? I'm going to take it back a little bit and talk about just data ownership, because data is really important, but it's garbage in, garbage out. You've got to get
Yep.
the right data. So,
It's a great
I
point.
kind of want to tie data back to the integration conversation. So, an integration initiative is a great way to ensure you have one source of truth for all of your event data. So it becomes less about who owns the data, which can be challenging to define in a big organization, especially, and more about what tool is the source of each key data point. So chances are it's going to be a combination of tools married together that paints the most accurate picture. So you can think of it as like a collective source of truth as opposed to like disparate sources of truth across the
Mm.
board. So for, this type of collaborative effort to be a success, because if you think about it, different people own different tools, different people are inputting into different tools. It's really critical that all stakeholders that are involved in an event align on an end-to-end process for their event channel and document which system is the source of truth for every data type. So you think about it, well, an event software will collect registration, for example. Well, the event software owns the registration data, who and how many people registered, who and how many people attended, etc. But the CRM is what houses the most up-to-date and accurate contact details. So even though contact details were captured during event registration, the source of truth of contact is typically the CRM. So it's really just important to understand the amount of fingers in the pot. It's important to put controls in place to maintain data hygiene across systems. And while integrations are key here to automate syncing wherever possible, it's just super duper important for ongoing governance to happen, ongoing maintenance to happen, and just essential to keep all the cogs aligned and turning. You can set it up for success, but if you set it up and forget about it, it's
Mhm.
not going to continue to work. So data is just so important that the focus is on having that strategy and understanding where the data is coming from and what data to rely on, and making sure that collectively it ends up in one place
Yeah.
so that you can make the most of it.
So the way I view it, say I'm whatever, I'm an event marketer working at a corporate company. We're running our own user conference summit, right? We have 500, 600 attendees, 1,000, whatever.
Mhm.
And I'm using a software to run that event, which also connects to my CRM. Part of the point that I see is those registrants, those people there, those touch points with them. How is that information flowing from the software into the CRM? Or is the event software organizing it itself? Because what I've always believed is great, you can flush 500 to 1,000 people into something they registered, but where's the personalization? Where are the touch points? How does it know whether it goes to marketing automation, whether it goes to
Mhm.
salesperson, whether, you know what I mean? How does that all work?
Sure. So it's magic. Then
Awesome. I'm a big
so
magic
you just
guy.
you just sprinkle a little fairy dust and then it
Great.
happens. So that's a great
CFO loves to
question.
hear that.
Yeah,
CFO
exactly.
is like, magic dust, perfect.
But the good
Yep.
news is, like, when it's all working together, like
Mhm.
it feels like magic, which is the cool part of
That's good.
any integration when it's working well. So this is kind of what I mentioned early on, that it's not just about the CRM, right? It's about how your other tools are aligned as well. So I'll give an example from my previous role. We use the marketing automation platform, right? And we had scoring set up in it. And the focus of it initially, of course, was digital tools, digital engagement. Well, events became, a big part of this, marketing as a whole. So
Mhm.
how do we score event interactions similar to how we score engagement through other digital tools. So you basically work with your, marketing operations team and determine a scoring model for like engagement that's happening at an event. Is it, someone that's just coming in to pick up a pen and you scan their badge? Well, then that's not going to be as critical as someone who comes in and sets up a one-on-one meeting and spends an hour with your sales representative. So the best thing to do, what we did, is we set up a lead capture solution that had a survey in it. And those survey questions were specific and the same across every event that we went to. And every question that was answered was scored. And the information flowed through from the lead capture tool directly to our marketing automation tool. And based on the questions that were answered, that is what would tell the system what to do with that information, whether it's a lead, if someone with a very, very high engagement, that lead may automatically be pushed to Salesforce as a marketing qualified lead. So depending on how that survey was answered, that's what would determine where that lead went. Some of them would stay in the marketing automation tool and be nurtured. Others would be, highlighted for attending different local events. Just depended where, their interest level was.
You're able to set those parameters, essentially. You're able to set an idea. That's really cool. I think being able to kind of guide those things and track all of it.
And they're all set for digital. So it's just a matter of getting those same parameters assigned for event engagement.
What kind of advantages on the user side, right, are there? Meaning, if I'm an attendee at this 1,000-person user conference, what kind of advantages am I getting in my experience, right? Because I think event experience, I talk about it all the time, but it's huge, right? When you go, how convenient is everything? How easy is it for me to find stuff, do stuff, be places, register? How does it help?
Yeah, I would say less on the integration side of things and more just on finding the right tool side of things. A lot of these leading event software companies do offer on-site solutions, mobile apps, ways to make your attendees experience better on site. And obviously, just using the right tools through, surveys, finding out what sessions people select. You can take that information and personalize people's agendas. You can, recommend people that they should connect with based on similar interests. So there's just a lot that's happening that's making this experience more engaging for people on site and easier. Post-pandemic, think about it. No one wanted to stand in a long line. No one wanted to, be, getting their badge picked up, a pre-printed badge picked up. So it kind of forced the industry to advance quicker and offer touchless solutions as a part of, event software. So there's just so much that software can do. And tying it back to registration, while not on the user side of things, when someone checks in, that information can go right through to your CRM. This person registered, this person checked in right off the bat. If your CEO wants to know, did so-and-so check in? Is so-and-so here? You don't have to run to the registration desk and check a list. You could just look on an app and see who's there. So it just makes things really fluid, really easy for everyone.
You said something earlier that I thought was really on point, which is utilizing these event softwares, because events are becoming more strategic and they are more of a go-to-market, customer-focused led strategy, is the idea of ROI, of the idea of being able to sort of track it better, understand it, show proof of concept, proof of event, proof of program, right? So maybe there's an event marketer out there that is hosting their first user conference summit, hosting their own event, right? Or maybe there's one that has been hosting in it and is not using an event software as robust. What should they know about that, about utilizing it to help prove that the event is worthwhile to a CFO, to a CMO?
Sure. So, first of all, they need to start at the right place, right? They shouldn't just do the event and then after figure out if it was successful or not. Super duper important to set up your goals well in advance of even deciding to have the event. And based on those goals, which typically roll up to leadership, right? That's the reason you're doing the event, hopefully. Not always the case, but the best thing to do is identify which KPIs, which key performance indicators, which metrics are going to be important to show that value. So ROI is a big buzzword, as we know.
Yeah.
ROI is a really mature KPI. So if you're doing your very, very first event, it's going to be hard to prove ROI in, the literal sense. What you may want to do is identify, 5 to 10 KPIs that you can measure. In the past, all it was, number of people that registered, number of people that attended. Clearly, we have a lot more that we can look at now. So, lining up the goals of the organization. I mean, if your goal is brand awareness, your KPIs are going to be very, very different than if your goal is to, get as many leads as possible. So, just figuring out which things you want to measure to prove what the goals are of your event. And then from like day one, you're able to tell the story a little better. And then when you get to the end of the event, you know what you're measuring. You can measure those things. And hopefully, the story will speak for itself.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to share with leadership, laddering up to their goals, how the event impacted that.
Any examples you could give to somebody like how exactly that software would help them go back to their boss, right? Or help them, like any, I don't want to say specific like stats, like nothing like that, but like more practical examples, like you're able to take this information and go back to them to help show that things went well, or is it number of engaged registrants, number of this, like whatever it could be.
I mean, I could give a few examples, like just again, depending on the goals, if it's to drive attendance, increase engagement, just improve the event satisfaction survey from last year to this year. There's just so many different ways you can go about it. That software provides the data you need to continually improve and prove value. So, identifying the KPIs or crime, and then identifying where in your event software you're going to pull those metrics from, and making sure that you have that all set up in advance. Then you're not like making anything up. You're using hard data.
So you can set things up based on your KPIs in the software. So if you have certain things that you're looking, if you have certain things that you're looking to create, you can do that through either surveys, number of leads, maybe people downloading something. There's all different types of things in there that you can set up.
Oh my God, there's hundreds of KPIs that you can use to measure an event. So once you identify what those are, you back into the metrics. Make sure from, invitation, registration, surveys, everything, you are always cognizant of capturing the information that you're going to need to prove that success.
So say I was new event marketer, I didn't even know where to start with event softwares.
Sure.
How do I research them? How do I know what's good? How do I know which one to pick? How do I know which one's better? How do I know which one fits what I need? I mean, do I have to sit through demos and get a feature and benefit rundown? Where do I start?
Sure. So if you're not already using event software, like your world is about to change, first of all, and your life is about to get a lot easier. And it can certainly be extremely overwhelming to someone who has never, Googled it to begin with. But, first of all, it's good to understand what event platforms are capable of. So the leading, what we call all-in-one solutions, provide things like registration, event management, promotion, like I said before, mobile apps, engagement tools to engage with, your attendees before, during, after, and the ability to run data and analytics and reporting as well. So you'll need to clearly map out what your need to haves are and what your nice to haves are. And side note, you'll also want to ensure that you engage stakeholders outside of your team before you get too far into your search, because you know what you need. But these tools are super powerful and can likely be leveraged by several stakeholders across your company. So you'll want to know up front what tools they may already be using and what challenges they're facing. So you could keep their requirements in mind too, since this is a great opportunity to streamline tools and ultimately minimize the integration efforts that are going to follow this initiative. So there's some great tools out there to help you compare different solutions based on your requirements. Some I've used in the past are G2, Capterra. There's a new event tech specific one called Event Mender that's out there. So you can leverage these types of sites to help identify, compare, and narrow down your options. Of course, I'm partial to see that. I work
Mm-hmm.
there now and I love it. But it's still important to look at several vendors based on your specific needs. And then, once you've narrowed it down to 3 to 5 options after doing all that legwork, then you set up demos. So you can see firsthand and really dig into each one based on your requirements. Because what's on a checklist might not necessarily be what you're looking for. So from there, after looking at 3 to 5, you should be able to, clearly narrow it down to at least your top 1 or 2. And then, you're in a much better place than you were when you started.
You know what I think was it was all pretty good advice in there, but I think what was a really good piece of what you just said was that the software can likely be leveraged by several stakeholders. I think it's a very interesting thing, right? So I've always said this, like when you're in events are run by the event department, right? You then have marketing, like conventional, typical marketing inside of a business, which typically oversees and runs events at the highest chart by CMO, right? But marketing on its own can be separate. Sales is always separate.
Yep.
Sometimes now go to market is separate. I mean, you have all these things, especially in these big enterprise companies. And I think what you're saying is, as the event marketer, if you're going to add and go in and add in a software for these large events for X amount of events a year, or even just for one event a year, why would you not be going to the stakeholders in marketing, sales, go to market, your CMO, whoever, and saying, hey, like, I'm going to use it for this, and this is the business case, and it's enough to pay for this and do it. What do you all think? Because you all have different initiatives. How can I help? How can I pull in? And that's a great way to sell it, a great way to get people on board, and a great way to say, like, man, we have this tool at our capability and we can help everybody here.
Absolutely.
Next question for you is more in line with a little bit of the overarching theme, is essentially like integrating event software with the CRM specifically, right?
Sure.
So with the idea of the cross teams, you have sales, you have marketing, you have events, like talk to me a little bit about that. How does it go? The event software integrating with the CRM plus all these different teams. Who do you have to work with? Who needs to be involved? Who needs to shut up and sit on the side? How does it all go together?
So it's certainly not a one-man show by any means, but it's really important for someone to drive the ship, right? You don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen. Yeah. But yes, it's going to take a good amount of collaboration across all of the teams that you mentioned. And you need their buy-in and participation early on to get things working smoothly. So cross-functional teams should collaborate on and document their workflows early on. For example, align on event intake, for example, for process consistency. Map out how registration data will flow from the event platform into the CRM, because these are all different people that are a part of this process. Or how, post-event feedback will be shared across teams. So it's really important to have regular touch points, regular meetings, get input, align on processes, even develop that process early on as much as you can. So the more each stakeholding department feels included in the process, the more likely they are to advocate for successful adoption. And that's really going to be in your corner, when you are taking this initiative. And if it's possible, it's not always possible, but try to have an executive sponsor on board to champion the initiative. Everybody knows if it's valuable to leadership and they set clear objectives, success will follow. So, the more buy-in you have, especially at a senior level, the more successful you're going to be.
Yeah. I mean, I hear that a lot on the event side of thing is about the buy-in. And I think obviously a software would be a larger purchase. It's an investment. So that's why I go back to how we set that up, which is the idea of it can be leveraged by multiple departments, not just one. It's not just, benefiting events. It's benefiting multiple departments. If, like you said, if you set it up right, if you get the right people involved and you say, hey, like, what does your workflow look like before this event and after this event? And how can I make it work inside of this software?
Exactly. And typically it's not fitting a round peg into a square hole. Typically it fits pretty well. Most of these solutions have taken all of this into account. So yeah, it's a win-win all around for the most part.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What about, I often wonder with these softwares, right? As people are using them, are they best used one-off? Are they best used over someone using the cycle of like 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 events a year with multiple teams, right? Because I've seen a bunch. I've had people who ask us, say, hey, we got one huge event and I want to use it, right? Or we have all these teams and all these events. Have you seen, are there certain ones, you don't have to name them, but like, is there an advantage to one or the other?
I mean, personally speaking, based on the experience that I have, it's much better to have it all in one place. You don't want everything living in a million different spots when it comes to, getting everything in one place, when it comes to maximizing integrations, when it comes to measuring the success, not only of one event, but of all of your events segmented in different ways. You want to have it all in one place. So whether or not you're using that software to actually use registration, that's one thing. But, have a software, have a tool for event intake that at least captures things like, all the basic key details of the event, including the estimated budget. Make sure that you either in the same tool or another integrated tool are either tracking your budget or at the very least capturing your final budget. It's just really important that all of these event details are captured in at least the same tools. Because if it's all over the place, stakeholders will be all over the place. Teams will be all over the place. No one will know where to look for this information.
Yeah.
And it's just really important, like I said before, to have that single source of truth. And, if you can get to the point of integration, a collaborative single source of truth, you're going to be so much better off. So it's not even just the measurement and ROI and, proving to leadership. It's just going to make your life easier.
Yeah. Do you see anything that now, having seen the kind of explosion of event tech really is kind of coming to its own here, are you seeing anything that maybe people didn't predict that it will do? Like any like extra advantages or things that it may unlock or make it easier for people to unlock in events that maybe event marketers should be looking out for or thinking about?
I mean, nothing we haven't kind of already hit on. I honestly think event ROI, ROE, whatever you want to call it, is
huge.
Kind of the golden piece that came out of the pandemic. When we were forced to be online and forced to do everything virtually, we also were forced to realize how much data we could capture. And the fact that that's now translated into in-person events, and now it's, integrating into the CRM, and now we can actually take real data from events combined with real sales pipeline data and figure out how impactful events are. Like, who would have thought that we'd be here 10 years ago? We weren't here.
I think you're right. I think you're right in the sense that like that is it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. I think there's a lot of areas in the events industry and different sectors that have to be trying to tackle it, right? No one software is going to do it, but different types of softwares, whether they're for large events, whether they're for exhibitors, whether they're for lead capture, companies like myself helping exhibitors and people running events be more strategic, develop KPIs, right? The companies that are actually in events just forcing themselves to put in the work to go get ROI, go measure things, and go understand, are we hitting our company initiatives and are we pushing things forward? It's going to take a whole movement from kind of the whole industry and everybody involved to start saying like, everyone needs to kick in a little bit here on how does this work? Even the organizers. I mean, the organizers, the GCs, everybody has to be trying to provide solutions, making things easier for people doing events.
And once all of this is in place, it frees up time to be more strategic and be thinking about what that next thing is. Right now we are inundated with manual tasks. We are inundated with trying to figure out how do we make sure that we can get this budget approved for this event next year. Instead of wasting time on that stuff, we can now be more strategic about our work because we have the time to do it.
Yeah. And I think the more that I've talked about this with people, not just event tech and all that stuff, but essentially ROI and proving the worth of the program or proving, proof of event is more important. I think it is because there's also a lot of hidden value in events. It's not always an ROI type of answer where like you spit out a number and you're like, see, I told it's not exactly that, but the more information that can come from softwares and everybody that's pushing this agenda, I think the better events will be and the more of a story people will be able to tell moving forward about how these events drive value, move company initiative, are a strategy for whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. And just being able to
Yeah.
quantify things. To your point, there are things that we never thought were quantifiable in the past.
Mhm.
I listened to your podcast with Chloe Richardson from
Yep.
Explory, and they're making great strides and quantifying the softer metrics,
Yes.
at an event that,
Yep.
it's not necessarily the clicks and the sign-ins and the session attendance. It's more about, the behaviors, the feelings of people at the
Yeah.
event, and just being able to put a number to that
Yeah.
and use that number to help figure out if you're being successful or not, or what things to change from one event to the next. You can't get better than data-driven strategy.
Yep. I agree. No, Explorer's doing some really good work. I had Chloe on. I'm going to have her CEO, Mark Brewster, on.
Oh, yeah?
Talk a little bit about MaxB, but not really MaxB because it's their product, but really talk more about the overarching problem of ROI and everything that we've been discussing of like, where does this have to go for events? And it really is such a deeper conversation in the sense that it's not like, hey, we spent $100,000 and, oh, we got this, right? Or, hey, we spent $1 million and, oh, we got this. It's, you dive into sales cycles, you dive into what do you consider brand awareness? You dial into, can you accelerate pipeline? Can you
Right.
add in net new leads? Can you close jobs faster? I can go on forever of all the things that happen at events, and how do you put all that in the pot and stir it up and then say, oh, look, and then give progress reports on it, right? Because what if your sales cycle
Exactly.
is 8 to 24 months? Right? It's going to take time. It's not like you run a set of
Yeah.
Google ads. Yeah, it's just different. So
Yeah.
it's
It's just
very cool.
mind blowing what a different place we're in now.
Yeah.
Because when I entered the event industry, I didn't think about stuff like this.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of us did. If you did, you were way ahead of the curve. But,
Yeah.
now you can't ignore it. And it's going to make you more successful. It's going to make you
Yeah.
smarter. It's going to make you more strategic, and it's going to help you grow in your career.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a blessing that this
Yeah.
happened. It's the silver lining of the pandemic that, it really pushed events into prominence and finally forced people to realize how valuable they were. And we're lucky people to be in this industry, to be honest.
Sure. It sure is. And the more people I get to talk to like yourself, just the enthusiasm I hear, in your voice of what you're talking about and saying is like, I tend to hear that all over the place. I try to tell people that about events that especially if I talk to young people, I'm always like, events is such a good industry. It really is. It's fun. It's strategic. It's challenging. It's, logistically challenging. It's got a lot of, it's just a good industry to be in. And I think that there's just a lot of passionate people. So I'm seeing that kind of more and more. Becca, great conversation today. Really enjoyed having you on. Appreciate it. How do people find you? Like, if they're looking for you, want to ask you another question, follow up, anything like that?
Sure. Yeah. Connect with me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest one.
Okay.
It's just, all the LinkedIn lingo / Becca Mazur, BECCAMAZUR. Yeah, that's the best way to do it. Happy to talk about anything in more depth that we went over today. Happy to talk to you about Cvent Consulting and how we can help you if you don't have the resources to do all of this, really want to do it. Shameless plug. But yeah, happy to connect with everyone. The more the merrier. One thing I had realized over the last couple years is just the value of networking, the value of connecting, the value of our industry. It's just a great place. More than anyone, we're an incredibly supportive group. And, just take advantage of the community that's out there and add me to it. Add me to your community. I'll be happy to connect.
Cool. Becca, thanks for doing this today. I appreciate it. Everybody, that's a wrap. That's another episode of Event Marketing Redefined. And we will catch you next time. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it.